Hello. Hopefully this is all working. Will I appear on my laptop? No? Can anyone see me? Oh, there we go. There I am. So I'll just shut that down. So hi. That episode was so good that I cried at the end, and I'm still a bit emotional now. I'm not sure if you can tell that I've been crying. Um, I've tried to hide it, but yes, that episode, honestly, so good. Easily my favourite of Series 11 so far. I know we've only had 3 episodes, but I really do think this episode is going to be incredibly hard to beat. Um, any episode that can make me cry, of all people, has got to be up there. But yeah, so as per usual, message away your thoughts on the episode. Let me know if you cried as well. I've also got the cool polls in the corner of the screen. I've got 4 up this time. So the first 2 questions are the same as last week. How would you rate the episode? How does it compare to the other episodes? And then the 2 questions I've added are: did the episode make you cry? Because I'm curious to know if anyone else cried like I did. And the final question is: which villain is your favourite of Series 11 so far? So it's comparing Cresco to the Remnants to Tim Shaw. So by all means, vote in the polls, message away, and I will look at the messages and obviously respond to the poll as well. Very quickly, just before I begin reading your messages, so I've done my usual thing of making notes of my likes and dislikes, and absolutely incredibly, I haven't got a single dislike at the moment, which is a really good sign. Obviously, I've only had the one viewing so far, so there may be things that I pick up on in future rewatches, but I just loved the episode so much that I could not see anything wrong with it, basically. So I'm going to vote for love in the poll, and I'll do that now quickly, actually. So if you're interested to know what I'm voting for, in the first poll question, what do you think of Rosa? I'm voting for I loved it. Oh, this is weird. I can see myself on my laptop plus on my phone screen, and there's just two of me. This is too much to handle. Um, for which Series 11 episode is your favourite so far? I'm obviously going to vote for this week's episode because it was so good. Which Series 11 villain is the best so far? That's a tricky one. I did like Cresco, but he didn't really do much. Um, I mean, they defeated him. I don't know the exact timing, but there was a big chunk of the episode that went by after he was sent back into the past by Ryan. So he didn't really have that much screen time, but I quite liked him as well. But I think it's got to be Tim Shaw for me. And then, did the episode make you cry? Obviously, it made me cry. That's the reason I'm asking the question. So there we go. So I'm going to refresh that every now and then, and hopefully you guys are voting in it. Yeah, so I'll shut that down quickly because I want to see what all of you are saying. So, uh, the Doctor's 13th Blu ray reviews. Hi, I really enjoyed the episode. Fantastic, that's good to know. They also said people were really disgusting in those days. Black people should not be forced to sit at the back of the bus. Thank God for Rosa Parks. Exactly. Yeah, this episode showed just how significant Rosa Parks was. Um, because without her, we would still be living in those times of just really bad racism and segregation, and obviously the buses, as you said, black people had to sit in whole different areas, and it was just so unfair. Why treat someone differently just because they have a different skin color? That's what I don't get. Um, but thankfully, times are getting better now. It's still not perfect. Uh, I mean, even today there was the big issue with Ryanair, the flight company. There was a old white man who refused to sit next to an elderly black woman for some reason, and Ryanair just didn't handle the situation well at all. They actually made the black woman move, even though she'd done nothing wrong, which is ridiculous. But anyway, we're here to talk about Doctor Who, not Ryanair. Penguin Man really liked the episode. Eloquy TV, do you think the title Rosa was a pun on the first title of the revival series Rose? It could be, but to be honest, I more think it's because that is literally what the episode was. About. It was all to do with Rosa Parks, so it was bound to be called either Rosa or Rosa Parks. Hello to people. Nathan Marlowe, such a powerful, strong and emotional episode. I think the actress playing Rosa was perfect. Also loved the music that played during important scenes. This series is going well. Couldn't agree more, Nathan. And actually, what's nice is you've touched on a few points that I wanted to mention in my very long list of likes for the episode. So it was powerful, strong and emotional. The actress playing Rosa, I think her name is Vinette Robinson. She did a really good job. She's a British actress, for those of you that don't know, and she's actually been in Doctor Who before. She was in Chris Chibnall's very first episode for Doctor Who, 42. And you would hardly know because she looked completely different in this episode, did a really good American accent, I thought, and you could really tell it was a different character. And had I not known beforehand that she'd been in the show before, I wouldn't have recognised it. TM Martin, what exactly made you cry, Dr. Blue? Right, so yes, the tears. Where to begin? Really, it started to come about right at the end when the music started playing, the Rise Up song. I just found that moment so powerful. And I think what really helped is the fact that this is genuinely what happened. Rosa Parks did refuse to give up her seat, and she did get arrested, and everything else the doctor said at the end, it's gone from my mind at the moment. But basically, her life didn't get any easier after her arrest. So it was the music. I thought it was a really good choice of song. The editing of the scene, how it cuts between Rosa being escorted off the bus to the doctor and Ryan and everyone else, and just the fact that they've spent the whole episode interfering to make sure history doesn't get interfered with and changed, only to find at the very end that they're actually part of events, and they have to sit back and let Rosa get arrested so that history can take its place. That was very moving and powerful. And then just everything after that as well. So even after that scene ended, you then had the scene in the TARDIS where the Doctor explains what happened next and how when Rosa was elderly, she finally got recognition. And then I think the moment where the tears properly started to fall down my face. Well, actually, having said that, it was once the episode had finished that I cried more, like reflecting on everything. I think during the ending, I was welling up, and it wasn't until I had time to reflect that I actually, got really emotional. So the fact the Doctor takes everyone to the Rosa Parks asteroid. At the time, I thought it was made up and fictional just for this episode, but it turns out it's real. Which just makes that moment even better. And just the final shot as well, how it panned back, and you've got the music flaring up again, and then it plays over the end credits, which I don't think has ever been done not New Who at least. I think when Adric died in Earthshock, that was no music, but I think this is the first time we haven't had the end credits theme playing. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it was just all of that just built up into one mess of me. But I'm happy. I love crying at things, and I love crying at Doctor Who. So I'm really glad this episode achieved that. King K didn't cry. That's fair enough. What time is it? Right, I've been going for 10 minutes, so I'll quickly check the poll, see if any of you guys have been voting on it. Keep messaging away, because I love responding to your comments. And I'm just desperate to know what everyone else makes of this episode. I had a quick look on Twitter, and I think everyone on there seemed to at least say it was good, if not excellent. So yeah, we'll have to see about the rest of you. 90% of people love it. Wow. And then 10% thought it was okay. Wow. So, well, the obvious thing to take away is that no one disliked it, at least so far. But more people think it was okay than they liked it, which is interesting. 90% of people thought Rosa was the best episode so far. 10% said the Ghost Monument, and no one said the series opener. And then series 11 villain, 70% of people said Tim Shaw or Sim Sha. No one said the Remnants, which are the villain from last week's episode, and 30% said Cresco. And then finally, oh, this one's quite varied. Did the episode make you cry? 30% of people cried along with me. Thank you very much, guys. I don't know why I'm thanking you, but I don't know. It's nice that I'm not alone in being emotional at this episode. 40% said no, and 30% of people almost cried. So that is quite interesting. As the stream progresses, I'll keep returning to that. But yeah, no, I'm just glad that other people have cried at this episode as well, or got close to it. TM Martin, October 2018 is Black History Month in the UK and other parts of the world, so now I understand why this episode ran today. Yeah, most likely that was planned. Yeah, Chris Chibnall must have known that he was going to show the series in the autumn, and so probably deliberately planned Rosa to be episode 3, so that we would definitely have it in Black History Month. Gaming Nerd, it is so sad to see Ryan get slapped just for helping a person's wife. Yeah, I was surprised at that actually. I thought it would be more verbal abuse than physical. Even though I don't want to see Ryan get hurt, I am glad that we got that scene because it did really hammer home just how brutal those times were. Because it's true, like people would misunderstand black people's intentions, and well, not even that. Sometimes they would just treat them like rubbish because they saw them as a lower form of life, which is disgusting. Elliot Bray nearly did cry. Probably would have if I was watching on my own. Tim Shaw is the best villain so far, but have all been average. Yeah, so the villains, it's true, they have been average really. Even this week's villain, Cresco, I liked him. I liked his theme as well. That's something I really liked about this episode. The music, I felt like finally got really good. Rosa Parks had a really good theme. I felt like the villain had a good theme as well. I noticed the music a lot more in this episode compared to the previous two. What else were you saying there? You would have cried if you watched it on your own. Yeah, I think I would have been even more of a mess if I wasn't watching it with my dad. And that's probably why I cried most once I'd gone upstairs into my room here, and had time to reflect on the episode. George Tove, hello, nice to see you. One of the best episodes in recent years. Absolutely adore it. A very special episode. I hope this quality of episodes continues. Couldn't agree more, George. Yeah, definitely one of my favourites. I've no idea where I would rank it yet. I just know that it's top 20 at least. I think that's a fair thing to say. But yeah, it's such an important story as well. And believe it or not, I didn't know who Rosa Parks was until I found out this episode was being made, which it shows how bad my school was really, that they never felt the need to teach us. But I'm glad I know now, and I feel like this episode has taught me a lot. But I really do hope this episode is shown in schools from now on, because it is very educational. You've got no aliens whatsoever, which is another reason why I really like it. it makes it more grounded in realism, I find. Not that aliens can't exist, but I don't know, just having a human villain, it really adds to the fact that this is a character piece, if that makes sense. Penguin, that was the Doctor Who we wanted. Exactly. Yeah. Yet another reason why I adore this episode. I said before in my 11 Hopes for Series 11 video, one of the things I really wanted from this series was a return to historical episodes that focus on famous figures, and this episode was exactly that. And it was, as I just said, a character piece. It was all about Rosa, all about the villain, and even the Doctor and her friends as well. Uh, yeah, there wasn't much fighting going on. It was just an emotional character piece, which are really good stories in my eyes. Dave H, I liked this episode. I think it's my favourite historical episode. Also, I think Sydney Newman would love this episode as he wanted Doctor Who to be educational. Very good point, yes. Yeah, I bet if Sydney Newman was still alive, he would love this episode to bits. Because as you said, this is exactly what he wanted from the show. Um, and you also mentioned it's your favourite historical episode. Yeah, I've been thinking about where I would rank it compared to all the historical ones. I think it's got to be at least top two. The only episode that would fight against it for the top spot, in my view, would be Vincent and the Doctor. That's another episode I've cried at. I'm not sure if I cried live for that one. But no, it's an episode I absolutely adore. But this episode may very well top that if I keep rewatching it. Um, yeah, because the ending is just as good as the ending of Vincent and the Doctor. King K sees this as their favourite episode as well. Joel Johnson, don't get too far behind this week. You said that at 3 minutes past 9, and it's now 17 minutes past 9, so already I'm 14 minutes behind. Sorry about that. But I want to take my time going through all these messages. 10 Wheel Dude, great episode, though I don't think it follows a very classical Doctor Who format. My main criticism would be that this episode seems to disregard the wibbly-wobbly principle that that history fixes itself. Interesting. Well, I don't really know what to say to that. I don't think it follows a very classical Doctor Who format. Well, I suppose it's hard to really, because classic Doctor Who was always, well, generally done in 4-part serials, and because they had next to no budget, you would find there was a lot more talking scenes than action scenes. Um, and just because of how TV's changed nowadays, I think it would be very hard to go back to that. So I think it was bound to not be too similar to classic era historical episodes. And as for they disregarded the wibbly wobbly principle that history fixes itself, I suppose they did, but also history can be rewritten, and that's what they were trying to avoid. So I'm not entirely sure what you were getting at in that message, but the way I see it, what Krasko was doing in the past would have changed things had they not interfered to undo his interfering. Dr. Collectible thought the episode was amazing. Nathan Marlowe almost cried. The emotional bit was certainly there, especially the scene when she didn't give up her seat, the beginning of a great change towards acceptance. Yeah, and as I said earlier, that is when I started to well up, because that is actually what happened, and the music really elevated the scene, and just so many components came together in that one moment for me, and I just absolutely adore it. Dave H, the one negative I have is Krasko. I would have liked to know why he was in the storm cage prison. So he would be from the future. So why was he working for someone? I'm not entirely following your message, Dave, but from what I know about Krasko, I think all that was revealed was that he was in the storm cage facility, which is where River was kept at one point. I think he was released from serving his time. He killed 2,000 people, didn't he? God. And yeah, and I think all it boiled down to was that he was just a racist, and in his free time, he somehow got hold of a vortex manipulator and decided to go back in time to 1955 and stop Rosa Parks from paving the way towards equality. And I think that's all there is to him, really. But yeah, I must admit, I would like to know why he was in prison, like why he chose to kill so many people and what that event was. Um, yeah, I would have liked a couple more scenes with him, I think. But I did like what we got with him. 10 Wheel Dude, minor point, feel free to disagree, but I thought it was slightly too preachy. It wasn't quite clever enough to pull it off. I think racism in this time has been handled better in other shows. That is fair enough. I must admit, I do disagree myself. Um, yeah, I'll do my usual thing and rewatch the episode later on tonight and see if it is preachy. But I thought it handled the racism really well. Um, yeah, and I felt like it was very reflective of the times. King K will try not to use too much data this time. Good to know. Penguin, who wrote this episode? And are they writing any more for Series 11? So this episode is written by Mallory Blackman, a very famous British author who is known for doing the Noughts and Crosses book series. I haven't read it myself, but I've heard good things about it from friends. But what's interesting is Chris Chibnall helped write this episode as well. Originally, I thought it was just going to be Mallory Blackman, but there seemed to be a collaboration between the two. But I think it worked. And yeah, as much as I'd love her to write more episodes for this series, I think she has only written the one. Who knows? She may come back for series 12. We'll just have to wait and see. SL Productions thinks this is the best episode of series 11 so far. Completely agree. King K agrees. SL Productions would have been a really powerful scene if we actually saw the black people walk into work. Yes, good point. Yeah, I would have liked that if they had a montage as the Doctor is speaking. Oh, SL Productions, you've got me thinking now. Yeah, so as the Doctor is talking about what happened next, it would have been cool if we could then cut to seeing what she's actually describing. So, for example, the people walking to work and boycotting the bus, then having Rosa Parks in elderly prosthetics, or maybe hiring an older actress, and have the scene that we saw on the TV where she's being recognised. I forget exactly what happened, but it would have been nice to actually see that moment in person rather than on a screen. Yeah, that would have made the ending all the more better, but I still love it all the same. 10 Wheel Dude, Graham continues to be excellent. The hotel scene was a highlight for me. The Doctor talking to the villain was iconic. Also liked the nod to the Vortex Manipulator. Yeah, so all the companions I really like. They're all likeable people, and what I liked about this episode is I felt like they all had something to do. They all did their bit to ensure that Rosa Parks got on the bus and the bus driver drove the bus and making sure the bus was full as well. Everyone did something to contribute to that. And obviously with Ryan and Yaz, we had the racism aspect as well. They got to give their perspective on the matter and react to the situations. Obviously, Ryan had it worse because he is obviously black. And as for Yaz, because she's Pakistani, she's sort of somewhere in the middle. So it was interesting to see how she dealt with where to sit on the bus, and all the other scenes that I've completely forgotten about at the top of my head. SL Productions didn't like the music playing over the theme tune. That is a shame because I loved it. As I said earlier, I loved the fact that we didn't actually hear the closing theme, and it played over that. It made this episode stand even more. But yeah, I think maybe that's because I love pop music and I love uplifting, inspirational music as well. Eloquy TV, I've noticed from the next time bit at the end that spiders are to do with the story. Maybe that's a reference to how the third Doctor died. Yeah, so very quickly, moving on to episode 4 before we bring things back to episode 3. Next week, we've got a very creepy episode involving giant spiders, which I'm terrified about, but also looking forward to. Yeah, so I must admit, at the moment, I think they won't be linked into the is it Planet of the Spiders, the third Doctor story? I haven't seen it myself, so that's why I don't know the title. Um, yeah, I don't think they're going to be the same spiders, but it would be cool if we could get a reference at least. Um, Gaming Nerd, did you see the arachnids in the UK trailer for the next episode? I did indeed, and it looks very spooky. SL Productions, less than a week to vote. Oh, is that for the top 50 YouTube awards? Doctor Collectible, probably one of the best New Who episodes. Elliot Bray, I think I'm dumb. How do I access the poll? Well, in case you haven't found it by now, if you're still here, that is, it's in the corner. You just click on the little eye, and a drop down will appear, and you just click on all the options that apply to you. And actually, as soon as you've mentioned it, and it's been 26 minutes, I'll have a quick, cheeky look again at the poll to see how things are going. It's annoying how I have to look at my face in order to do it. Let's have a look. Oh, okay, so it's changed slightly since I've last looked at it. 81% of people love the episode now, 12% like it, and 6% think it was okay. So not a single person who's voted so far didn't like it, which is such a good sign, because I do think this is one of the best episodes we've ever had. Second question, Rosa is still completely winning in the best episode of Series 11 so far. No one's voting for the woman who fell to Earth. Best Series 11 villain, Tim Shaw is still winning. And did the episode make you cry? A third of people cried. So I am technically in a minority, but 33%, I'm quite happy with that, I think. Cool. Nice. So, what are the comments saying? Joel Johnson, always had my complaints of historical episodes, how they typically refuse to delve into the harshness of history, of how the harshness of history would have an effect on the companions, our audience surrogates, but this episode certainly changed that. I was genuinely surprised at the guts this episode had to go in that direction. Yeah, exactly. I quite like historical episodes myself. My only complaint really is that in most of Stephen Moffat's reign as showrunner, we didn't have these kinds of episodes that focus on a famous historical figure. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do really enjoy those episodes where you get to meet these people, like Shakespeare and Vincent van Gogh and Agatha Christie. Yeah, I just find those episodes really entertaining, whereas the ones we've had in Stephen Moffat's era, like Thin Ice, The Crimson Horror, Robot of Sherwood. See, that's the thing. I forget what episodes we've had because they just don't stand out. A lot of them are still good episodes, but I just easily forget them because I'm not invested in the period they're set in. King K, my favourite episode order is number 1, Rosa, number 2, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, and number 3, The Ghost Monument. Interesting. I probably may say episode... So, for me, it would go number 1, Rosa, number 2, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, I think, at this moment in time, and then at the bottom, The Ghost Monument. But I still enjoyed all 3 episodes. 10 Wheel Dude, Yaz finally getting something to do. Better companion balance in this episode. Yes, and that's another thing, yet another thing that I love about the episode. I mentioned earlier they all had something to do, um, and I'm looking forward to next week's episode as well, actually, because I think we'll finally get more of a focus on Yaz, because we'll actually get to meet her family in that episode, apparently. Um, yeah, so I'm hoping next week will be her time to truly shine. But yeah, no, even ignoring next week's episode, this week's one, there was a really good balance of all the characters. T.M. Martin, Mallory Blackman co-wrote the episode with Chibnall. She is black, so is director Mark Tonderay and composer Segan Akinola. They're the first black writer, director and composer to work on Doctor Who. Yeah, I completely forgot about that until you mentioned it, T.M. Martin. Um, but it's so bad that it's taken 55 years to get to this point. Um, yeah, it's ridiculous. I suppose the composer aspect is okay because I don't think Doctor Who has had that many composers over the years. But yeah, first black writer and director, Doctor Who should have changed their ways sooner, really. But then, to be fair, I don't think they've been racist about it. I think it's just a matter of nobody came up. Um, like maybe no black writer ever expressed an interest in writing for the show. Maybe no black director ever expressed an interest either. We just don't know. Because I really doubt the show is racist. I hope it's not, anyway. Joel Johnson, King of Raccoons. I don't really understand how it's social justice warrior. Is that a response to another message? Because I can't see that one. King K doesn't know whether they prefer Jodie or Tennant. Yeah, they're very similar doctors, I find. For me, it's Tennant, purely because he's my first doctor, and don't get me wrong, I love Jodie Whittaker, but I do think David Tennant is a slightly better actor than her. God, those words are going to haunt me now, but at this moment in time, I do feel like he played a better doctor than she is. She's still very good, I hasten to add. Joel Johnson likes the idea of this episode being shown in schools. Yeah, I really do hope they do that. Dave H. also didn't know anything about Rosa Parks until he did a search on Google. Yeah, it's ridiculous. They need to teach schools who she was. King K liked how Ryan was chatting to Martin Luther King Jr. You've just reminded me. There was rumours when, I think it was when the first Series 11 trailer came out, and you had that cool shot of the Doctor, Ryan, Yaz, and Graham standing outside the motel. There was rumours that this episode would show the assassination of Martin Luther King. I'm glad we didn't get that because that would have been too dark. I'm going to sound stupid now, but did he get assassinated? I feel like I've just got that completely wrong. I'll have to look into that. I swear he did. But anyway, no. I'm glad we didn't have that because this episode was more about Rosa Parks. Tia Martin, the actor who played Krasko, Josh Bowman, also played Jack the Ripper in another time travel show, Time After Time in the States on NBC. How do you know so many facts, Tia Martin? That's incredible. Thank you very much for sharing. I have not seen that myself, so I may have to look into it. Google account thinks, that's a very generic name, thinks Krasko is going to return. You may have a point there, actually, because I think there's going to be at least one more historical episode, and I think that's going to be like the 17th century. And if I remember correctly, Ryan did say that he sent Krasko back to that century, so that would be really cool if he returned. Eloquy TV, is the Dr. Banksy? I hope so. I loved that joke. I found that very funny. When she was like, "Oh, I'm not Banksy, or am I?" I found that very clever and very funny. The Penguin has picked up on a moment between Ryan and Yaz. Yeah, so thank you very much for mentioning this, because this is another thing I wanted to bring into the chat. It does seem like we are heading towards a Yaz and Ryan romance. Um, and I think if it's done at the pace it's being done at the moment, I think it can work. I think my only aversion to it, when I mentioned it in my Series 11 Hopes video, was that I don't like it when. Well, I just wanted something different. I just wanted a TARDIS team that were all friends for once. But if this relationship is gradually built up, that I'm fine with. It's just if they were already a couple when becoming companions, it would have been too similar to Amy and Rory, to what's it? I've completely forgotten. Rose and Mickey as well. Yeah, it would have been too similar for my liking. King of the Raccoons, Jodie Whittaker really grew on me as the Doctor in this episode. Yeah, she's still doing a very good job. I know I said I preferred David Tennant to her, but that's not to say she's a bad Doctor. It's just, I don't know, I'm still getting used to her myself, I think, but I do like her. T.M. Martin preferred the subtlety of the social issue message on race in the Shakespeare Code, but I give this an 8 out of 10. Dr. Blue, how does this episode Rosa compare to On Thin Ice? Very good question. So let's just go through the first part of your message. I preferred the subtlety of the social issue message on race in the Shakespeare Code. Yeah, but I do, hand on heart, I do think we needed an episode like this where it's made explicit and it's the main focal point of the episode, because up until now it has literally just been subtle. You gave the episode an 8 out of 10. For me, obviously I need to watch the episode again before I can formulate a unbiased score, if that's even possible. But for me, it's got to be at least a 9 at the moment. I thought it was really good, and I'm really struggling to come up with negatives for it. SL Productions gave it a 9 out of 10 as well. Oh, you also asked how I would compare it to Thin Ice. Thin Ice was a really good episode, don't get me wrong, but I prefer Rosa. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Google account has noticed that Krasko was in the same prison as River. Elliot Bray, any historical story where the TARDIS crew doesn't resolve an awful event but understand it needs to happen is good, like Vincent and the Doctor or Fires of Pompeii. Yeah, so both episodes you've mentioned there are my favourite historical episodes, I think. I can't believe I forgot about the Fires of Pompeii. Yeah, that's a really good episode, and I love the fact how the Doctor actually has to cause Pompeii to get destroyed. Yeah, that really adds to the emotion of the episode. But yeah, no, I completely agree with your point. I think stories are always really interesting when the Doctor can only do so much. Like all the Doctor does in this episode is ensure history goes about the way it's meant to. She doesn't change anything. And that's a big thing I liked about the closing scenes where Rosa is making a stand. The Doctor and her friends literally can't do anything. They have to literally sit there and watch as she's escorted off the bus. Google account didn't like Thin Ice, and they could have cried at the end, but didn't. SL Productions thinks they need to do a 1980s episode. Haven't they already done a 1980s one? I'll have to look into that. If you've got any ideas, SL Productions, on what the story would be about, let us know in the messages, because I'd like to hear it, and hopefully everyone else will as well. Dr. Blue, did it make sense to you that the Doctor left Ryan alone with the temporal displacement device and he sent Krasko in the past? Wouldn't it have been better to send him way in the future? Good point. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe it was done because presumably Krasko was from the future and for him to be stuck in the past, he wouldn't have all this advanced technology that he's used to, and he'd effectively be in the Dark Ages, um, quite literally, depending on the period he was sent to, uh, and so wouldn't be able to cope. Maybe he was sent to Africa just to really take the mick. What with him being a horrible racist and all that, being stuck in a foreign country, he would hate that. Elliot Bray, I prefer it that we don't know too much. Moffat would have explicitly said that he was part of the KKK or something, and it would have made it cringy and slash or disrespectful. That is a good point. Yeah, I suppose sometimes it is good to have less is more, essentially. But I just like finding out about these villains' backstories. Eloquy TV, what did you eat while watching this time? I had a slice of cake. Oh, good for you. I wish I had cake. It was my mum's birthday a few days ago, and sadly we finished off the cake like yesterday, so there was none left. I ate my dinner, which was pasta, and that was quite nice. I don't normally like pasta, but this had nice chicken bits in it. Anyway, you don't care about my eating habits. TM Martin, Eloquy. Oh no, you're speaking to Eloquy. TM Martin, Dr. Blue, since you say Grace is coming back, wouldn't it have been good to have Mallory co-write that episode? Because I felt like the spectre of Grace's spirit hung over this episode with Ryan's actions. I disagree, to be honest. We don't know how Grace is coming back at the moment, so obviously it was Chris Chibnall's idea to kill her off, so he must have some plan for her, and I'm hoping we'll find out next week, because I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I'm hoping that when the Doctor and everyone returns to Sheffield, they arrive before the events of The Woman Who Fell to Earth, so Grace is actually still alive. I think that'll be really interesting. And again, just like in this Rosa episode, they can't change history. They know that Grace is going to die, but they can't do anything to stop that because then it will affect the previous episodes. I'll shut my laptop down. Yeah, so I feel like Mallory Blackman was the perfect writer for this episode because she's had experience of writing about racism, but Chris Chibnall is the best person to handle Grace because he created her. Motorhawk 2, I think Krasko was a good villain as he used intelligence and subtlety to change things. Though he failed to get what he wanted, he proved he was an intelligent mind. He proved that an intelligence is the greatest weapon, essentially, is what you're saying. Yeah, so another thing I liked about him is how he was always one step ahead of the Doctor. Whatever the Doctor did to try to ensure Rosa and the bus driver and everyone else got on the bus, he would then do something else, and then the Doctor and everyone would have to respond to that. I quite liked that. That was cool. But yeah, no, he disappeared very quickly. Like I didn't expect Ryan to actually send him back in time. I thought they would have an argument and maybe a physical fight, and then I don't know, maybe the Doctor would have appeared and said, "Oh, I'm going to punish you somehow." Like I didn't expect Ryan to just straight up shoot him with this gun and send him backwards in time. Google account liked the music at the end. It would have been so weird to go from a really sad moving scene with sad music and then suddenly the loud dun 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 of the Doctor Who theme tune. Yes, and that is probably why they chose to continue having the music through the credits. And I'm really glad they did because it does allow you to stay in that moment. And I think that's what helps me to get emotional over scenes. And that's why I never really cry over American programs. Not all programs do this, and to be fair, I don't watch that many American shows. But I have noticed there's a tendency for, so say a character's just died, you would have like a funeral scene or the other characters reacting and crying to that scene, and then you would suddenly cut away to months later or weeks later or later on in the day, and the music suddenly stopped, and everything just carries on. And so you sort of, if you are someone that's been crying at this character's death or whatever's gone on, you suddenly perk up again. And I don't know, I would personally let that moment linger for a bit longer. Um, and that's why I'm really glad Doctor Who rode the wave in a way and had the. So obviously, you first of all hear the music on the bus, and then it returns. So you've sort of got that returning feel right in the final scene, and then yeah, they just allow it to play out through the credits, and I think that was a stroke of genius. I loved it. Easily my favourite ending to an episode this series. I really thought episode 2 would be my favourite ending because I loved seeing the new TARDIS, but the emotion of this ending to Rosa is far better in my opinion. Dash Maniac, they really need to step up with the next time trailers. Completely agree. Yeah, they're too short and they're not exciting. Um, I'm hoping they're deliberately bad. In that, no, not deliberately bad, but I'm hoping the fact that they're short is deliberate. Um, because we all know Chris Chibnall is someone that wants to keep the series as under wraps as possible. And so I'm hoping he's consciously said to the editors, don't give away too much. But it is a shame because you need to find the right balance between not giving away too much and enticing people to come back next week. But I don't know, time will tell. I was quite happy with the viewing figures for last week's episode. I think that got over 7 million live, which is, I forget the exact fun fact surrounding it, but I think it's one of the highest a second episode has ever got. Well, since Doctor Who came back. So that's a really good sign. And I really do hope loads of people watched this week's episode as well. Just because it will get loads of people talking and it deserves to be seen. Google account. I thought it was funny when the bus driver had a go at Graham for sitting in his fishing chair and yelling at him to stand up, just like with Rosa. Yeah, yeah. I did like how they dealt with the bus driver and just well, not charged in there, but sat down in his chair, got their fishing rods out. Ryan went to fist bump him. I quite liked the ending of that scene as well when Graham then tried to fist bump Ryan and he was just left hanging. He was just left like that. Yeah, there was a lot of funny moments in this episode, I found. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, what did you think of the music at the end by Andra Day called Rise Up? Absolutely loved it. And after the episode, I listened to it several times on my trusty laptop. Definitely going to download it now because I love that song. What else? How far behind am I? 17 minutes, not too bad. It's not like week 1 when I was, I think, 45 minutes behind. Dash Maniac, there were black writers in Torchwood. Oh, that's good. That's something at least. And that was probably down to Chris Chibnall, actually, because he was in charge of Torchwood. Tia Martin liked the Ghost Monument better, but Rosa was better than the woman who fell to Earth, except Tim Shaw was better than the Remnants, and Lamey Wamey Cresco, who I still don't get for his motivation. Interesting, okay. So you preferred the Ghost Monument and thought Rosa was the second best episode. That's fair enough, to each their own. And you don't understand Cresco's motivation. Yeah, it's not made explicitly clear, but I think all it boils down to is that he just did not like black people. I think he was just someone who would have felt much happier living in 1955 Alabama, for instance, when racism was still a big thing. Presumably, in his future, everyone is completely equal. Everyone of all sexualities, gender identities, social class, ethnicity as well, and he probably didn't like that for some weird reason. Tia Martin, their top three doctors are Tom Baker, David Tennant, and Chris Eccleston in that Doctor. Very good doctors there. Eloquy TV, Martin Luther King did get assassinated. Oh, good. I know something about history at least. Joel Johnson added that he was assassinated on the balcony outside of a motel room he was staying in. And that's probably where the theories came about then, from seeing a motel in the trailers, but presumably it was a different motel room. Joel Johnson, the Banksy joke reminded me of Nine hinting to Rose that he was Father Christmas because he knew about her red bicycle she got when she was 4. I think it was 7, though, just to correct you there. Yeah, it was very reminiscent of that joke. But I prefer the Banksy one because it actually makes sense. The Father Christmas one, spoiler alert for anyone that does believe in Father Christmas, he's not actually real. So that was just... It was a funny joke, don't get me wrong, but you sort of brush it off as, oh, Moffat's just trying to be clever and witty. Whereas with this, it was funny and you could potentially argue it's true because I don't think we know who Banksy is, do we? I think they're an enigma. T.M. Martin, thank God they did not show the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Even Rosa may have been too heavy viewing for a tea time programme seen by young viewers. What do you think, Dr. Blue? Yeah, I completely agree. Even though I'm a sucker for dark things, even I know that Doctor Who is not the place to have something that dark. Although, having said that, there has been plenty of death in Doctor Who before, and they could, if they really wanted to, they could find a way around it. I don't know how exactly, but they could. They could at least. Eloquy TV, notice how Ryan didn't object to being called Graham's grandson. I did not notice that, so I'll be looking out for that on my next rewatch. So, going back to what I think we were saying last week, it does seem like there's this nice character arc going on where Graham and Ryan, their relationship is getting better through their travels with the Doctor. And hopefully by the end of the series, Ryan will actually treat Graham like a granddad and not be as awkward around him. T.M. Martin, Dr. Blue, for your information, my undergraduate major was in broadcast television and communications. That's how I got a few TV facts. Oh, nice. I would have loved to have done a university degree in TV, but sadly I picked maths because I'm an idiot and I'm a loser. Dave H, the problem I had with Krasko is if he is from the future, I don't think there would be any racism in the future, so why would Krasko try to change history? Could someone be paying him? You've also said. Yeah, well, going back to what I've said earlier, hopefully you heard this bit. I just think he's someone that just, like from a personal viewpoint, doesn't like black people or anyone that's not white. So he could have been paid by someone, but that idea didn't come into my head when I watched the episode. I was more thinking that he's just someone who was born racist, or maybe his family was a racist for some reason. And yeah, so it just quite simply boiled down to him seeing black people as being less than himself and wanting to change history. Google account has given the episode 9 out of 10. They wanted to know more about Krasko, and that's their only complaint. Yep, completely agree. King K, I think Krasko needed some more development. He didn't feel like a villain, just a side character. True. But I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Google account, unrelated to the episode, but do you have any more theories as to who the Timeless Child is? Not at the moment. I must admit, I haven't really been thinking that much about it. I just still like the idea that it's a secret sibling of the Doctor. Having said that, though, I have given the fact it could be Susan some more thought as well. That would be interesting if she came back. But we'll have to wait and see. Um, King K, Dr. Blue, you should make a video on the Timeless Child. Good idea, but I don't know. I think, to be honest, it wouldn't be that interesting. I think all I have to say on the matter is what I literally just said about how I think it's either Susan or a a secret sibling. Yeah, I wouldn't really have that much to add on it, but I'll bear it in mind. Thank you for the suggestion. TM Martin, did anybody else catch a continuity error regarding the suitcase in the old bus depot? It had the initials GFB on it, but the bus driver who had Rosa Parks arrested was named James Frank Blake, JFB. Hmm. Um. Well, I don't think that's a continuity error, TM Martin. Again, I'll have to rewatch the episode to be 100% certain, but I thought that briefcase belonged to Cresco, and no idea what it stands for, but presumably that was just the manufacturer or who supplied him with the briefcase. I don't think it had anything to do with the bus driver. Um, Tia Martin, now I'm hungry for cake. Happy belated birthday, Dr. Blue's mum. Thank you very much. I'll tell her you said that. That's very nice of you. Oh, thank you, King K, as well, for wishing my mum a happy birthday. Eloquy TV, who's noticed that the Doctor figure is with the Slitheen on the shelf now? Oh, I did not notice I'd done that. I'll move her down. I don't want to relegate her to being Slitheen level. There we go. Although, wasn't she further along before? I feel like I'm blocking her off if I do that. Oh well. Sorry, Jodie. TM Martin, wouldn't it be cool if Banksy was a time traveller in real life? If not, Doctor Who, like 13 alluded to. Yeah. As I said earlier, I would love it if Banksy was actually the Doctor. But that would be cool if he or she was a time traveller as well. The Scamp, do you think the Doctor is beautiful? Absolutely. I think I've got a bit of a crush on her, not going to lie. Just look at that beautiful face. There she is. I do really like the doll. I think they've really captured Jodie Whittaker's likeness. Gary Heron, I want to see if the price for Banksy art suddenly increases. Yeah, it probably would if it was revealed that the Doctor was actually Banksy. What else is there? Tim Martin, so when are we going to see other parts of the TARDIS, like the wardrobe/closet? Because obviously they have one, because they all changed their kits. I thought 13's purple shirt was okay. Yeah, that would be cool if we saw more of the TARDIS. I must admit, I don't think we will, at least not in this series, because that would require building a whole other set. And unless there's a good reason to have a scene within another room of the TARDIS, I think all the TARDIS scenes will literally just take place in the console room. But yeah, no, quickly talking about the Doctor's shirt. For some weird reason, before I saw this episode, I was worried I wouldn't like it and that it would put me off. I think it's more because I'm obsessed with the colour blue. And I really liked the Doctor's costume up until this point with the rainbow shirt that's actually blue underneath. Is it blue or black? One of the two. And yeah, I felt like the purple shirt would have been too drastic a change, even though it's practically the same outfit. But no, it was fine in the end. I really liked it. The Scamp, what do you think of Graham calling the Doctor Doc? I think it's a bit weird, but I like it all the same. Elliot Bray, perhaps the episode The Demons of Punjab will be where Cresco returns. Maybe Cresco tries to make the racism around British colonies worse. The demons could be racist characters instead of aliens. Very interesting idea. I like that. Um, I personally doubt it for now. I do think Cresco is limited to this episode, but I'd be open to seeing him again, as long as his return is good and we get more backstory for him. But yeah, I'm very intrigued by this Indian episode. I'm hoping that'll be another really good historical, though I do doubt it'll be as good as this episode, just because this was 9 out of 10, maybe even 10 out of 10, depending on what I feel after I've seen it several more times. City Shark Jr. I really like the quality in this season. The effects and monsters look great. I hope the arachnids look awesome as well. Yeah, you can really tell Doctor Who's got a bigger budget now. Every episode has been well directed, I've found, and I haven't thought there's been any dodgy effects. And from what I've seen of the spiders of next week's episode, I think we're in for a treat. I think they're going to be terrifying. TM Martin, did anyone think them showing Rosa Parks' bus incident in 1943 was a bit redundant when they later fast-forwarded to 1955, 12 years later? Why show that? Good point. See, I've forgotten the specifics of that scene now. I know it's to establish what the rules on the buses were back then, but maybe that was the first time she experienced it. I don't know. But yeah, it is. Yeah, maybe it was done to show how long she'd been putting up with this. So for 12 years, she'd have to give up her seat, and going through a certain door and sit in a certain area. So maybe it was just done to show the amount of time that Rosa had had to put up with this for. Eloquy TV, they've answered the question to show it as an issue that was building up. Yep. King K, the dude at the beginning saying Ryan would be in a noose was quite dark, but probably realistic. I did not even pick up on that. That is so dark. God. Fury Ninja. Such a beautiful episode that used its ability to show how different it is now to then. Yep, agree. Gaming Nerd is wondering what the Christmas special will be. Yeah, me too, because, well, obviously they filmed it already, but most of the time we'd have our first details of the episode by now, but we have literally no clue what's going to happen in it at the moment, which is so exciting. Examiku, what if Cresco was the master? That would be cool, but I personally doubt it. Tia Martin, anyone notice how Ryan's dyspraxia is no longer affecting him as he gracefully climbed in and out of the cheesy motel bathroom without crashing and falling and making a whole bunch of noise? Good point. See, again, I'm not an expert in dyspraxia, so I don't really know how it works. I suppose what I could say to that is he had quite a big window to get out of, so there was minimal chance of him falling and crashing out of it. And also Yaz was there to help him. Maybe she jumped out first and then pulled him out. Maybe the Doctor and Graham were talking so loudly to the policeman that they wouldn't have heard any crashing. We don't know. King K, I want to know who Rosa's actress plays in 42. No wonder I can't remember though. Well, I think you're somewhat justified in that. From just reading through your message, I suddenly remembered which specific character she played in 42. She was a doctor, and I think she was one of the first to be killed by the, what do we call them? The sun creatures that say burn with me. Yeah, I think she died within the first 15 minutes of the episode. So that's probably why we can't really remember her. I think it was the first 15 minutes. Eloquy TV, yeah. I think she died. She definitely died, I know that much. King K, off topic, but I like the scarf in the back of your door. Thank you very much. And I just clicked my head when doing that. Ow. That was a gift from a friend, actually. Very expensive gift. I think it cost them £40. It's probably far cheaper to get now, but they got me this 5 years ago. TM Martin, I got to give it to Graham when he used the name Steve Jobs. When the bigoted cop asked who he was in the motel, I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, that was a really funny scene. And I even liked his description of his invention as well. That was actually just mobile phones. TM Martin thinks the Timeless Child is Doctor Who herself. That would be interesting. And I agree, it could be Susan or Jenny or even Ace. Ace would be interesting, but I personally doubt it because she's human. And I like to think that the Timeless Child is something that originated from Gallifrey. Right, I'm going to quickly check the poll again to see how things have changed. Wow, I've been going for an hour. Hopefully you're all entertained and not minding me nattering away. 68% of people... 68%? What the hell am I saying? 68% of people loved the episode. 24% liked it. 4% thought it was okay. 4% hated it. That's a shame. 66% of people think Rosa is the best episode of this series. 70% of people think Tim Shaw is the best villain so far. And 27% of people cried. And 27% didn't cry. And 45% of people nearly cried. So, what's that? 72% of people either cried or got close to crying. So, a good majority there. Quite happy with that. Okay, how far behind am I? Oh, I think I'm catching up. That's good. I think I'm only 10 minutes behind now. Dave H, keep looking at the weeping angel in the background so it doesn't move. Yeah. I mean, what I could do to make things scarier, I could just put it right there. And then, as I move, how scary would it be if it suddenly disappeared from there and like reappeared in the air or something? That would be really scary. But I'll put it there for now. And we'll see if it moves. Joel Johnson thinks that Graham will die, probably in Ryan's arms. I think that may happen. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I don't want him to because I love Graham and I love Bradley Walsh, who plays him. But, yeah. I don't know, though, because Ryan's already lost his gran. I doubt the show would be that brutal as to kill off another family member. And actually, the only family member he's got left. Joel Johnson, Ryan will call him Grandad. Graham's last words will be something like, I'll say hi to your nan for you. We'll miss you so much. There won't be a single dry eye watching it. Do you want to make me cry again? That's so sad. Yeah, I mean, that would be a really emotional scene if done well. But yeah, no, I'll be a wreck if that happens. Eloquy TV doesn't know what Krasko was chewing. Me neither. I think it was just a stick. It's a fashion thing that people do sometimes. I'm not sure. I haven't seen anyone do it in recent times, but in lots of films and TVs, you get people chewing those weird sticks. TM Martin, Dr. Blue, would you rate this episode as controversial? The use of the name calling was a bit much for viewing by kids, but at least they did not use the N word, thank God. But Yaz said Packy. Wow. Well, starting with the last point of your message, again, I'm far from an expert in this, so please don't take my word as gospel. But I like to think that word is only bad if used as an insult, if that makes sense. So, what I'm getting at is if someone is of Pakistani descent, saying Paki is just an abbreviation of that. Having said that, I am feeling weird saying that word out loud. So maybe it is, maybe it's not allowed. Um, I don't know. Hopefully, I'm not offending anyone saying that. But I think it was definitely appropriate for Yaz to say that word because she's obviously of that descent. And just like an argument could be made for black people saying the N word to each other, even though I disagree with it myself because I think it's just a nasty word. Um, I think some black people use it affectionately. Um, I really don't know though, so I'm going to stop talking about that because I'm out of my depth here. Um, Fury Ninja, Josh Bowman played Krasko. He won't be a single episode character, too expensive. Interesting. Well, I've never heard of Josh Bowman, so I don't know if he is a prestiged actor or not. Tia Martin, Yaz said Rosa Parks made the way for her to become a cop, but I disagree with that statement as historically inaccurate because Britain has always been way more progressive than the United States. Interesting. Again, I really don't know about black history, but I like to think Rosa Parks paved the way globally. That's just me being hopeful. I have no idea. All I know is that she paved the way in America, at least. I don't know if it was a global thing she started, but it seems that way from what this episode was getting at. Google account. The first scene with Rosa going through the wrong door actually did happen in real life too. Did not know that. King K, the man at the beginning who made the dark comment about Ryan, called his wife Missy. No chance. Well, Missy doesn't necessarily mean the master. It's another way of saying miss or wife, I think. So I think that's all that we have to interpret from that scene. Elliot Bray, I like the fact we see the TARDIS materialise from the outside first and then go inside. I know it's meaningless, but I just prefer it when that happens. Interesting. I hadn't given that any thought myself. The only thing I thought of when we saw that scene was it's the first time this series that the TARDIS has materialised properly, because in the Ghost Monument, it was obviously phasing in and out, and we didn't even see it in episode 1. And this is the first time the Doctor has actually piloted it this series, so I quite like that. Eloquy TV, I also liked how the windows came first. That is something I missed. I did not notice that. Tia Martin, what say you about how the new TARDIS sounds? I like the old TARDIS sound better. Again, I haven't picked up on the new sound. I thought it sounded the same to me. Eloquy TV couldn't notice the difference either. Eloquy TV, why isn't Dr. Blue wearing his trademark suit? I would, but I get very hot in it, so I try to save it only for special occasions now. Not that this isn't special, but it is late in the evening, and I don't really want to be sweating into my suit. I'd much rather wear something looser. Yeah, so hopefully you don't mind. The Doctor Who Guide. Hello, everyone. I haven't seen the episode yet, but I wanted to drop by and say how awesome this channel is, and I hope you all have fun with the rest of the stream. Oh, thank you very much, the Doctor Who Guide. You've probably left by now, in which case, bye. But nice to see you nonetheless, and thank you very much for your lovely comment. I hope you enjoy the episode once you've seen it. King K, Dr. Blue doesn't always wear his suit. Eloquy, yep, thank you very much. Well spotted. Not that it's hard to spot. I mean, I think I've only worn my suit in about 8 videos, if that. But you can't really blame me because it does get incredibly hot in it. So, yeah, as I said earlier, it's all about comfort, really. I'd feel a lot happier filming videos in comfy clothes, but I do love wearing my suit, I should add. City Shark Jr. Isn't Rosa also in Sherlock? And I think she survived a bit longer in 42. I have no idea if she's in Sherlock. I'll have to look into that. And yeah, she may well have survived longer in 42. It has been a while since I've seen that episode. I just know that I think she was one of the first to die. I think definitely in the first half of the episode she died. So her maximum screen time was about 25 minutes. And obviously you have to reduce it for all the scenes that, well, obviously she's not in. But yeah, no, I really don't think she was in that episode much. Eloquy TV, the suit suits him, if you excuse the pun. Good pun, I like it. And thank you very much. I hope it suits me, because it was bloody expensive. TM Martin, Krasko better not be the master. He's handsome, but a bit boring as Krasko. Please bring back Missy, Michelle Gomez, or even John Sim. Yeah, I would much rather Krasko be a separate thing from the master. And even though I do love the master, well, first of all, I don't want the master to appear in this series because I think he should be allowed a rest, just like the Cybermen and Daleks. But also, I've said this before and I'll say it again, the master slash Missy had such a perfect ending in The Doctor Falls. I love the fact that they stabbed each other in the back, or stabbed themselves in the back, I should say. And then obviously Missy blew up. So it's quite hard to escape from that. And I feel like it'll be a bit of a cop out to have that character suddenly return. Okay, I think I will be going for the next 13 minutes, guys. So if you've got anything desperate to say, message away. And if you haven't already done the poll, it's up there, or polls, I should say, because there's 4 of them. So click on that little eye and answer them. And right at the end of the video, I'll do a final look at what all of you thought of the episode. And then we will wrap up. Gaming Nerd, I think The Timeless Child is something that the Doctor really liked and looked up to for motivation, because when the remnants say about the Timeless Child, she said, "Get out of my head." Good idea, I like that. Yeah, which brings me back to the sibling idea. If it's an older sibling of the Doctor, she would look up to them, theoretically. And yeah, I don't know what it is about that idea that I love so much, but I just love the idea of the Doctor having a hidden family member that we've never known about. But as I said before, it is completely unoriginal because Sherlock has already gone down that route. But let's pretend that never happened. Let's pretend Doctor Who is the first time we'll see this, if that is what the Timeless Child is. So I'm 10 minutes behind still. King K, an image of an angel becomes an angel. Exactly. So have fun when the weeping angel arrives in all your homes. And I should do it like the Time of Angels, where it gets closer and then it's right there in front of the screen. And then it's suddenly inside your home and inside your brains as well. Eloquy TV, maybe the Timeless Child was the Doctor's crush. Good idea. But personally, I find the sibling idea more interesting. King K, I was thinking the Timeless Child could be Captain Jack. Also, almost like he was outside time in the way he didn't age too much. Nice thought, but I personally disagree with it. Because this seemed like something very personal to the Doctor, and Captain Jack, as great a character as he is, he's only been involved in a small part of the Doctor's life. Elliot Bray, it could be River. She was born out of her time and conceived in the TARDIS. Good idea, but River's had a nice ending and a nice series arc, well, for the most part. The less said about Let's Kill Hitler, the better. um, but yeah, no, I think it would be an insult to bring back that character because she had such a good ending in the Husbands of River Song. And to be honest, I don't want to see her again now. I think by all means keep doing the Big Finish audios because they can take place in her past. Um, but if we see her again, I think that's just an insult to the audience because she's had so many endings now. TM Martin, Dr. Blue, please comment on how the new TARDIS is treating the 13th Doctor. Is it rebellion, independence, or bad chemistry with the 13th Doctor, who happens to be a woman? It seems to fight her. Good point. I hadn't actually thought of that myself. So they began the episode saying it was like their 14th attempt. Maybe it's just the Doctor herself. She's still getting used to the controls. I think that's how I saw it when I saw that scene. I don't think the TARDIS is fighting her, because otherwise, why would it let her in at the end of the Ghost Monument? And why would it return to her? Yeah, I think it's more just a driving issue. The Doctor is still in the test driving phase and still getting to grips with it. TM Martin, could Krasko be a rogue time agent or simply a time meddler? He could have been, but now that we've seen the episode and that wasn't established, I think he was literally, air in my lungs or something. God knows what that was. Yeah, no, I think he was just someone that was in prison for killing thousands of people and just had a grudge against black people. Right, before reading the Oh God, I can't speak today. Sorry. Before reading the rest of your messages, I think I'm talking too quickly. That's my big issue. But I'm just so excited after this episode. But anyway, before I go back to your messages, I'm going to quickly summarize all my likes that I've got here. And yeah, there's no dislikes whatsoever, so I don't have to worry about sharing them. So I've already said I really liked the Banksy jokes. I thought they were quite funny. I found this one of the best historical episodes ever, if not the very best. The only other contender is Vincent and the Doctor for me. I felt like the pacing was a lot better in this episode compared to the last two. There wasn't any scene that I was bored with. I finally noticed the music. I thought this was the best composed score out of all the episodes of Series 11 so far. I particularly liked Rosa Parks' theme, if you can call it a theme, and the villain's music I thought was quite cool as well. I really liked how the Doctor and her companions were part of history and couldn't interfere once they were on the bus. I mentioned about Vinette Robinson, who played Rosa. I thought she did a really good job, and I know some of you guys have said she didn't do a very good American accent, but I personally thought it was good. I've spoken about the ending loads, how much I love that. I especially loved the touch of the asteroid being named after Rosa. And I loved it when I thought it was fictional, and now that I know it's a real thing, I love that scene even more. The big thing that I love about this episode is it was so emotional and beautiful that I cried at the end, and not many episodes have had that privilege. I really liked how the climax was about ensuring history goes about the way it should, rather than fighting a villain or a big CGI battle. South Africa was a very good likeness for Alabama, or Alabama, however you pronounce it. Yeah, I really believed the setting. Loved the use of the Rise Up song at the end. I loved when it was first played on the bus. I loved how it played over the end credits. I loved how we heard it again when everyone's looking out over the Rosa Parks asteroid. And also it's a really good song as well. So a new one to add to the album. I liked the villain. I know we didn't find out much about him, but I really liked how he was essentially just a racist with a vortex manipulator. And I like the fact that there was no aliens because it helped ground this episode in realism. The episode didn't shy away from how horrible those times were. We had foul language being said, we had Ryan being slapped. Um, yeah, so it was very honest to the times, I found. This episode was exactly what I wanted, which I think is a huge reason why I love this episode so much. I said beforehand that I really wanted there to be a historical adventure that focuses on a famous figure because we haven't had one of them since Vincent and the Doctor, really. You could technically count Robin Hood, that episode, but he's not real. So, yeah, this is the first episode of its kind in a long time. And it was really good as well, so I got everything I wanted and more. I really liked how educational it was, and I said earlier, I really hope it's used in secondary schools to educate people. And the final point, which I haven't actually mentioned yet, is it seems every episode now begins with the title sequence. It looks like we're never going to get pre-titles anymore, which I didn't know what to make of last week, but I must admit it is growing on me now. I like the fact that the music is signifying that the show is beginning and you're being transported into this world, and you don't have to have these exciting openings anymore. You can take your time, as this episode did. Like the first scene after the title sequence was Rosa trying to get on a bus, basically. It wasn't anything particularly exciting besides the tension that was there. Um, but yeah, a lot of episodes would deliberately create a situation to make this exciting pre-titles, and it's nice that Chris Chibnall doesn't feel like we need that with this series. But yeah, so that's everything I liked. So we've got about 4 minutes for me to try and get through all these messages. Um, Whodunit Productions didn't like the pop music in the end credits. That's fair enough. It's not for everyone. King K, do you think we're going to meet Yaz's folks? Absolutely certain. I think it's confirmed that in next week's episode, Arachnids in the UK will be meeting not Ryan's, Yaz's family. So 100% we'll be meeting them. TM Martin, I loved how the writer and Chris Chibnall included the Emmett Till reference in the dialogue after Rosa intervened to help Ryan. That was so on point and showed excellent research and sensitivity to the issue. Again, that's something I completely missed. Eloquy TV didn't notice that either. Fury Ninja, really think we're assuming Cresco is a racist with only the two linking factors being race. Are we jumping to conclusions? Quite possibly, but can you blame us when we haven't really got much information on him? And also, he did say something about Ryan's kind being lesser, so that to me gave off a massive vibe that he's a racist. The Scamp, would you faint if you met Jodie? Absolutely. No, not. Hopefully not. Hopefully I'd be able to compose myself, but I would geek out, I think, because even without Doctor Who, I really like her as an actress, and it's one of the few times I've known about an actor before they were announced as the new Doctor, because I was a big fan of her from Broadchurch, Black Mirror, Attack the Block. I'd seen her in as well, so I'd seen her in 3 different things. I knew her name as well, which is a good sign. Like, you know, with some actors, you recognise the face, but never pay attention to what their name is. If I actually take the time to learn an actor's name, that's usually a good sign. It shows that I like them and appreciate them enough. But yeah, no, I love Jodie Whittaker, and she's a really light-hearted person as well. In all her interviews that she's done, she seems really friendly. And I'll have to wrap up. And actually, going back to that fainting thing, I do feel a bit faint now, so it's probably best that I start to wrap this up. Um, mm, yeah, I feel very weird. That'll be awkward if I faint on this stream. Right. Let's see. The Scamp, is this comparable to Vincent and the Doctor? Definitely. I said earlier that they're very close episodes in terms of how much I like them, and also they're both contenders for the best historical episode that I've seen. The Scamp, have you ever had a dream about the Doctor? Jodie, no, not yet. HooTuber94, what if the Doctor and River conceived a child on Beryllium, and that's the timeless child? They had 24 years. Interesting point, but River died without having kids. That does put a slight spanner in the works. The Scamp, did the Doctor, when he was an adolescent, look like a teenaged William Hartnell? No idea. Dave H, the TARDIS landed in the same place 14 times is because the TARDIS knew the Doctor had to be because of the Archon energy. Not really understanding what you're saying there. Right, 7 minutes behind. We can do this. I just really don't want this video to be as long as the first two. Hopefully you guys don't mind these long videos, but I think this one does have to be wrapped up soon because I am feeling a bit faint for some reason. Nathan Marlowe thought it was 14 different places trying to get to Sheffield. Yeah, that's what I thought as well, to be honest. I didn't think it was the same place 14 times. Motorhawk 2, the timeless child could be many things. As the older we get, the fuzzier our memory gets. If it's the same with Time Lords, that the timeless child could be an event that set the Doctor on her path. Quite possibly. The Scamp, anyone else seen Bradley Walsh ask a Doctor Who question on The Chase? I did. That was quite fun. A nice little Easter egg then. The Scamp, Jodie has got nice feet. Fair enough. I have not noticed that myself. The Scamp, thoughts on Jodie's boots? I thought that said something else at first, so I'm glad you're asking about the boots. I don't notice them, to be fair. I think they're okay, but when it comes to the Doctor's costume, the shoes are the thing I'm least concerned about, I think. Hayden 2012, hopefully next week's episode will see more character development for Yaz's character. Yeah, I said earlier, I'm pretty sure we will get more development of her character, so we've got that to look forward to. Eloquy TV, do you need a doctor? Quite possibly. Hopefully Doctor Who doctor and not a medical doctor, because that would not be as exciting. King K, thanks Doctor, see you again, bye. And there we go, we're at the end of the messages. So I'll turn them off. Oh, we're doing okay for time, an hour and a half. Again, it's flown by, so thank you very much for all keeping me company. So just before I wrap up, we're going to do one last look of the polls to see what the final voting is. I've just realised, when I checked earlier, I don't think I refreshed the page. So I think I literally read out the same results as before. Hopefully I didn't, because that would be quite awkward. So, the final poll results are as follows. For the what do you think of Rosa question, 70% of you loved it, 23% liked it, 6% thought it was okay, and no one disliked it or hated it. So I think that's universal approval, really, which is really good because I think it's very well deserved. For the which Series 11 episode is your favourite so far, 13% voted for the woman who fell to Earth, 17% voted for the Ghost Monument, and an overwhelming 68% voted for Rosa. Very happy with that because that's what I voted for as well. For the which Series 11 episode of Villain is the best so far, Tim Shaw wins by a big chunk, 72%, compared to 10% for the Remnants and 17% for Cresco. And then finally, did the episode make you cry? If I can even scroll down. A quarter of you said yes, Oh, and a quarter of you said no as well. And 48% of people almost cried. So that is quite a lot of people crying or close to tears, which makes me feel good because, as I've said many a time, this episode did make me get weepy. Yeah, so those results are good, I'd say, especially the fact that no one disliked it. So I'll very quickly put the chat on to see if anything important is being said. So, bye from Eloquy TV. Hayden 2012, really great stream once again. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. TM Martin, Dr. Boo, go take care of yourself and cheers for another awesome live stream. Looking forward to next week's discussion. Piers, thank you for the time you give us. That's okay, it's a pleasure. Thank you for watching. I don't know why I did that with my hands. Thank you for watching me. There we go. Cool. Right. Thank you very much for watching, guys. So next week, I'm hoping to be here at the usual time, 9 p.m. British time. There may be a slight issue in that I'll be coming back from a different part of the country, but that's a lot earlier in the day, so I'm hoping I'll be able to watch the episode live and then do this normal stream. But if anything changes, I'll be sure to let you all know in the video for Arachnids in the UK. A very creepy episode, hopefully. But yes, so thank you once again for watching. I am now going to go and cry over the episode again. Bye.